to come hit me in the face, I decided instead to actually answer another question. I think I actually got it today when I looked up. I was looking up just to see what notifications I had. And someone was asking about like I believe it was having a unionship or make like a soul connection with a succubi, and is it safe? Anyway, so to be kind of honest, we have to understand what a succubi are, and also going to talk about. Hey, Kayla. I'm also going to be talking about the incubi. How come everything right now decides to be really loud when I'm trying to stream? I'm getting really tired of it. Just want to make that perfectly clear because it's getting kind of annoying. But anyway, yeah, I'm a bit of a sass mode right now. Anyway, first off, we have to understand what a succubi or an incubi is. Well, to start, both of them pretty much feed off of sexual energy, feed off of people, or feed off of a person, place, thing, object. But primarily, the stereotype, how it's known, is that they are entities that have spiritual intercourse with you, or intercourse at all, or some kind of connection to you, and through that, they take your energy from you. That's what both of them do. In some fashion, they're taking an energy from you. The succubi is more passive. Hey, Michael. Succubi is more passive. The incubi is more aggressive. One is more. Hold on. I can't. But anyway, as I was saying, about the succubi and incubi, both of them take energy from you, believe it or not. And they feed off of energy. It's just the way they go about it is ways that's how to put this. Kind of like they're more along the lines of taking energy from you while you're in a more primal, lustful state. And they're having the urge to stick it or, catch it, whichever way you want to go about it. But with that in mind, knowing that, why would you want to become bonded with something like that? At least with my opinion. Because if you're going to be bonding with an entity that feeds off of you, and pretty much, or even also in the way that kind of leaves you drained, takes your energy, or worse, it's the other way around with an incubi. You want to be stuck with something that forces itself on you and pretty much kind of, in a way, rapes you? Shut up. I wouldn't. I don't think, I would want to have an entity around that keeps forcing itself on me and gets very hostile because I won't give it my energy, if you know what I mean. That's how I look at it. And it's not safe. is not beneficial. And if somebody's going to try and come back and tell me otherwise, congratulations. You're one of the victims that is being essentially possessed by it or blinded by it. Because if you're going to be sticking with something that's just going to keep taking and taking and taking from you, isn't that kind of a one-way relationship? And isn't that kind of abusive? Why are you going to stick with something that just keeps taking and taking and taking from you? And why do you want to be stuck with that? Because they don't really give you anything back. And before someone chimes in, what about Lilith? She's known to be a succubus. She's a divine. Lilith is a divine. That's different. And while we're on the topic with having Lilith being involved, do you think she's going to give you a succubi or an incubi? Why would she do that? And that's a serious question. How's it going to empower her to give you an entity that takes from you? Instead, she's going to be responding to that kind of request like, oh, looks like you're one of those that likes, being sucked on too much. I'm not going to do it. And I'm not going to give you anything because you can't take care of yourself. If you need to have something, handle your sausage or go fishing for you, lame. No, that's not good. Because point blank, at the core, like I say, she's a divine of self-empowerment, self-assurance, self-respect. If you have that as your foundation, hi Dolly, if your foundation is coming from a sense of self and being empowered, and you go to something else, that's how it's supposed to be. But if you're going from anything else to being empowered, no, because you're relying on external to empower yourself. It has to be empowered to do, now I'm going to go this way. I do as I like, I'm doing this. Not, this makes me feel empowered, I need it. No. Because how Lilith goes towards stuff, she goes, I'm doing this because I want to. Not like, I need that. No. Because she knows that she only needs herself and she can do anything she wants. She doesn't give you entities that drain you, because that's kind of counterintuitive what she's trying to advocate. Why not just take care of yourself and be strong with yourself? But if you think being empowered is just being stuck with an entity that sucks you dry day in and day out and makes you feel less empowered, if that makes you feel empowered and that's your choice, wow. To me, it doesn't make sense. And don't get me wrong, the idea of it sounds fantasy woozy woo, and I'm not trying to be a little bit mean about it. But when it comes to actually bettering yourself, you're crippling yourself because you're having an entity take all your energy and misdirect you. And that's just putting it the harsh way. That being said, and in all reality, this just popped in my head. There is no such way of having an interaction with succubi or incubi. There's really no safe experience with it. Especially the incubi. The incubi is worse. That thing chases after you like if you're bleeding and if it's a shark and it has a sniff of blood. Because sharks, when they come in contact with blood, they become bloodthirsty and they become relentless. Incubi will do the exact same thing. It will chase you down, and that's something you do not want to experience. I haven't experienced it, thank goodness, because if I did, it would be quite terrifying. And no, let's not do something that can get you potentially hurt. Instead, let's learn about it, know about it, and some things you don't have to test. Some things you can just read and gain information on it and know how to protect yourself from it. Mm-hmm. Because the way that most of these entities work and how they actually, like how some of these malefic entities work, what they do is when somebody is mm-hmm, that is true loyalty. And I've heard accounts like that, that something just is just keep coming after you and it won't stop. It's a very aggressive. But how these entities actually work through people, they wait until they're the most vulnerable, and then that's when they go. And sometimes it goes to the extreme that they actually get a hold of someone and they actually use them kind of like how do I put this? Like a vessel to get to something that has a lot of energy. That's just pretty much what they use. They use somebody who's weak-willed, possess them, and now they use them to get towards something that has a lot more energy. And once they're close enough, and then the supposed target is close by, the person that's being affected by this entity, they start going at this being that has a lot of power and starts bringing that down. And then as soon as it's weak enough, it just jumps onto them. That's how scary. And the scariest part, the most terrifying, is that sometimes you don't even know it. That's the most scary. And it can happen at any time of the day to anyone. That's just the truth. It can happen any time of the day, at any moment. That's why you have to be completely sure that you have your protection up. And you need to be having your protection up all the time. And there is no such thing as having a spiritual experience from one of these two entities. Because it's not. It's like it's like you're having something take a bite out of you and takes your energy and leaves you dry. That sounds weird. Still, that's what these do. That's the main purpose of them. And how some people kind of sell the thing of like having intercourse with the succubi is like a good thing, and it's like having a like something on your wanting to do list, like your bucket list. Yeah, I slept with a succubi. How's that an accomplishment? What are you gaining out of it except, saying you've done it? If you said it was pleasurable, that really wasn't one. Because a real one, it's not pleasurable. And if somebody thinks being pursued, I mean, internally, I'm just thinking, why in the heck would you think that's pleasurable? Being relentlessly chased by an entity that is essentially so bloodthirsty that it will not stop, and no matter what you do, it just keeps coming and it won't stop. That's not really a good place to be. So really, the only thing that you're really going to be gaining out of that is you're going to be really tested to see how you can defend yourself, for one. And you have to have protections up. I don't care who says whatsoever. You need to know how to protect yourself and keep it up. And if somebody tells me otherwise, they don't even need to be practicing this art. Point blank. If somebody is advocating that you don't have to protect yourself, or like these kind of succubi, no. There's only succubi and incubi, which are pretty much the polarized. What the heck? There's the masculine version, the incubi, and then the feminine kind, the succubi. Either way, that's it. There's none that is like another kind. It's just those two. One is more passive. One kind of is more alluring and pulls you in. The other one chases after you like it wants to, you know. It's not. It's best to not even mess with them. And if you happen to have an encounter with one, the succubi is much easier to deal with because you have to really just stand firm and just defend yourself and tell it to go. No. And you have to stand your ground. If you don't know how to stand your ground and just push back nonstop, because a lot of people think that the succubi by stereotype comes in and comes at you all. Oh, come on, please. And it tries to pull you in. If you're gonna just succumb to that, no, don't succumb to it. If anything, you should just be all, no. And if it keeps it up, just hold your ground. Don't let it convince you. And sometimes they get to the point where they become very hostile, like they come at you. Just keep your ground and keep it cool. I said no. Beat it. Go away. Find someone else that you can sit on. And keep your ground. And it doesn't matter how like in your face they get or what they do. Just keep your ground, and sooner or later, the succubi will get kind of annoyed and bored that it'll leave on its own. The incubi, though, that's completely different. Because since it comes at you relentlessly, you still have to hold your ground, and you're going to have to understand on how to really make a good warning shot at it that you don't mess around. And this is real serious stuff. Like some instances of domestic violence, that's an incubi. Instances where people get raped, precisely. But when we're talking about the hag, though, keep in mind, and we're not talking about the like crone goddesses like Lilith, Hell, for example. Hag is different. The hag, I don't even know where to start with that one. Because I mean, it's like you have to really watch your back, and you have to really be on full alert when you have an instance like that. Because a lot of people that are new age and a lot of people especially with the new age thinking that to hop on the succubi bandwagon or even the incubi bandwagon thinking that they're going to get a really good experience. Honey bear, you're not going to get a good experience. You're going to end up wishing you never did it. Potentially the best answer I got, when you have, let's put it this way, when there is so much malevolent energy with the intention of causing harm and just gaining for self-pleasure and for self-gain, like narcissism, so much of that energy can take rude. Let's not do that again. Let's not make a loud squeak noise. Anyway, when you have so much of that, really? I said, don't do that. Can you do it again? Piss it. Don't try me. I'm not in the mood. Anyway, when so much of that energy is building up, it just keeps building and building and building, it can take on an awareness of its own and just start causing havoc. Because it wants to. And it gains energy by having things suffer. And having their energy pretty much go down. Some things can do that. And it's pretty terrifying. And I saw something move right behind me. Can you guys just stop? It's kind of rude. I didn't even tell you guys you can come in here. Piss it. There. I think I know why. I think they're kind of mad because I exposed them. Hey. Last I checked, they like exposing themselves. But that's none of my business. It is very hard to be a medium. Very difficult. Because you just pick up on stuff, or you hear something, or you see something on the corner of your eye, and you just can't help but just be all, really? And just try and dismiss it and tell it to stop messing with you, because it's kind of sad that it can't be human. And having this turned on for 11 years, it's like pretty, I'm going to just be completely honest, having it for so long, at first you think, like at very first, like, oh, I really want to do this. Many years later, why? Well, I'm stuck with it now. Because once you have it on, it's very difficult to get rid of it. In fact, I don't even think you can. But I wouldn't want to get rid of it anyway. But as well, the succubi and inccubi are also vampiric too. Now, vampiric, like what I said yesterday, vampiric isn't always malefic, but the case of the succubi and the inccubi, they take the energy and they don't give it back at all, because they're using that to feed off of you. And there's, again, really no benefit from it unless if you're trying to use an entity and disguise it as something like that, and then sending it off to someone to give like a, what's it called? It's like you're giving them like a present that has a bomb in it. You're giving them a gift, and now it's going to like cause damage instead. What is that called? There's a term for that, but yeah. To be technical, it can be both. It can be both. They have potential to take both. So in reality, in my view, and how I stand, let me know when you're done having that thing between your legs going, because you just want to have that thing get attention. It should just be cut off. Anyway, I don't really see any benefit to it at all. And because somebody is saying that, well, it's not that kind of a succubus, then what kind is it? Is it a succubus? Yeah. Okay. So a succubus is an entity that takes energy. Even if it's sexual, even if it's life force energy. Don't matter. It's still taking it from you. Why are you going to be interacting with something that takes from you and doesn't even benefit you at all? And there's no real technical sexual experience. And even also, let's get a little bit deeper into this rabbit hole. When you have intercourse with something or someone, be it spiritually or physically, congratulations. Attachment. When you have unionship with another person or entity, there's an attachment link. Once you have it, it's stuck there. Though with the Spiritual aspect is deceptively much simpler to sever that and cleanse that away. The physical, it's not. Because physically, once that happens, it actually goes into your psyche. And with garlic mental, that's something that's very difficult to get rid of because it leaves an imprint. Spiritually, okay, no longer attached. The other way, well, no longer pure virginal to be technical, and now that person or being, but mainly this person, is now stuck to the back of your head. That's just what it does, and that's really how sometimes nature can be. And usually, most of the time, your first hit, if you catch my drift, you tend to have a big emotional attachment to that person. I admit it. With mine, yeah. It's huge. But when you start having more and multiple people, nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying it's wrong. But there is a huge risk that you can become attached to somebody that they pretty much do that exchange with. You don't know what is coming into you and now what you can potentially be afflicted with. Hence STIs and all those things that are very detrimental to somebody's health. But also on the mental, emotional, and spiritual level, you don't know what they're carrying. You can see how deep this gets into. It becomes a big, like, wait a minute. And just like how a lot of people and a lot of New Agers, I'm not trying to be mean because that's not the point. The point is just telling you how it is. A licubus? I've never heard of such an entity. Because it's just... I wouldn't even know what that could even be, because usually ubus being that ending of like the word of the etymology, that would be what would that prefix be though? Well, Jesse, do you want your reading? I know you wanted a reading. You said you wanted one. You still okay? I mean, that was a long time ago though. Oh, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. A succubi is a succubi. It's still the same thing. Same thing with an incubus. Same thing. It does still behave the same. It's just that the target is different. Usually it's seen as this, but it's still the same thing. It still behaves the same. And with spirits and entities, most of the time you look at how it behaves. Technically, it's still the same thing. And in all reality, if something is pursuing you and chasing you down and really going after you nonstop, it's an incubus. It can appear as a female, and then the same vice versa. It can appear like that because they're not bound by having it be a male or female. They're not bound by that gender polarity because they're an entity. They're a being that doesn't have really a technical physical form. But what they appear in, it can be anything. You have to look at the behavior and how it's interacting with you. If it's really pushy and in your face and trying to hunt you down and won't stop pursuing you, that's an incubi. If it's more passive and trying to pull you in and trying to allure you, that's a succubi. That's really the simplistic way that I can put it. And mostly, I mean, the concept and having an understanding about it, I can see where it can be potentially, like, I see the potential with it and I can understand it perfectly. But the thing is, some things and some topics should be just kept simple, in my opinion. If some, because with the spirits, the divine, all of them, technically in spirit, yes, but with the physical body, that's where the human awareness hits a wall, because we're bound by anatomy, human anatomy, to be technical. And then when it becomes how when somebody does a transition, that's, in my view, and now don't be thinking that I'm against it, because I'm not. I'm for it because that's freedom of expression. But when somebody starts with one and then they go to the other side, they're now expressing, they're primarily expressing the new side of their, like the new gender now that they have. So someone can be like born male, but then they transition to female. Okay, now they're what's that word? What is that word? Like they're expressing their femininity more on the physical. If that makes sense. Then same vice versa. But when it comes to the spirit world, they have awareness, they know how to direct themselves, and they know how to take the actions that they need. Some are more in your face and more apparent, while some are more subtle, if that makes sense. And as well. When there's the idea of non-binary, yes, that exists. And having it be gender fluid. Funny enough, believe it or not, gay people, they're gender fluid. All of them. You're probably wondering, how's that? To put it simply, you have a masculine that's really feminized. And believe it or not, in ancient Egypt held those people pretty close to the status of a pharaoh for being gender fluid. It's factual. They even had their own special tombs too, and they were held in high regards. Even in beat me, Caleb beat me to it. She just beat me to it. And yep, gosh, it's like you already knew it and it was already in my head and I was about to say and you both just went, hold on. Like, okay. Yeesh. And I was just like, I don't even need to even explain it. You guys already know. Wow. I would raise a snap cup, but you know that cup doesn't have enough glitter on it. Yes. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, you were in Nightshade stream, right? I don't know where I'm getting that from. Yes, okay. I'm just like, how come I've seen that before? And then for some reason, a mental block was like, well, now you got to take a guessing game. Was it today? Was it yesterday? Was it on the live stream? What was it, kid? Today? Yeah. One Greek entity, hermaphrodite? I think it was hermaphrodite, which is funny enough also the offspring of Aphrodite and Hermes. Although, to be technical, Mercury is a planet that's pretty much neutered, genderless. But it has both, if that makes sense. Because it's like a chameleon planet. It just adapts. Now, that's just like with Saturn. He's also a neuter planet. But in the way that's like this. Saturn being a planet of the elderly and death and hardship. Saturn does not really have how do I put this? Pretty much, he really doesn't care. He's still going to whack you one. Because if you're if you're stupid, you're stupid. Hermaphroditus. Venus, that would be because Venus is a feminine energy, but however though, like with Lucifer, the way he expressed himself, I mean, his planet is Venus as well, and Venus is a very calm, is a planet that has a lot of energy of give and take. It's negotiable. It wants to enjoy, and it wants to pretty much indulge in the physical senses. It wants to appreciate beauty. Venus is not really on its own, not really an energy that's very doesn't really like what's that called? What's that word? It just doesn't like really having conflict happen. It wants to keep things negotiable and everything gets along and peaceful. But now when you put it in a sign that's very feisty and pushy, like Aries, or even I'm trying to think, okay, either Aries. Primarily Aries and Leo, or the fire signs. Well, for Aries, you can actually see the feminine energy become a little bit pushy and very impulsive. Yeah. That's why I like to just, for me personally, and to keep it simple. Because when it gets to the point where there's so much, I'm like, what? Cis? Because to me, if somebody has transitioned, I see them as the gender that they're now transitioned to. That's how I see it. When it gets to cis, I'm cis male, like, what? I get confused. Because that does confuse me. Like, what does that mean? You're born male? Okay. Why don't you just say born male? But when somebody says, yeah, I'm born male, but I'm gender fluid, okay, I get it. That part I get. But when it gets really complicated, like mentally, I get lost. And not saying that because it's not that I don't want to. It's just that mentally, I'm trying to be like, okay, where are we going with this? As long as I know how to address you, I'm okay. And that's really taking the time and the effort to actually learn about somebody and actually properly interact with them. If somebody is trying to put out the effort to really interact with you and be able to converse with you in a way that doesn't bother you, I mean, you still have to give them credit for trying. Because if they wanted to, they could just be all like, no, you're whatever your name is, and that's it. But when they're trying to like really talk to you about an issue or a circumstance, and they're really trying to understand and ask questions, so somebody puts in the effort to really try, just be patient. And one of the things about the lifestyle and how you're going to be living is that you would have to pretty much be understanding that that's something that'll come up. Not saying that it's going to be mean. As long as it makes sense and if it's simple, I'm all for it. And that's being from a fundamental level. Yeah, I know. And that's the thing too. Like with spirits too. Only most of the time, man, in order to comprehend with spirits and entities, they need that masculine and feminine, feminine, no, masculine and feminine thing to actually have connection with it. To actually be like, okay, this. While some, if it gets to the point where it's too complicated and it doesn't really make sense, man has trouble with it. Like like for an example, there's a myth about, I think it was, it's what's it called? It's from India. It's about the monk. No, it was about Buddha and how how did it go? I'm trying to remember. What is that called? He Oh, please don't talk politics right now. Please don't. And now we're gonna have more yelling and no whatever. But there's like a tale of when. Well, but either way, I'm back now and sorry. I just had to give a good call. Still. Anyway, though, to be really technical, that's really all I had to say about the Succubi and the Inccubi anyway, because I can. In all reality, if you're going to be wanting to be having an entity and you being bound and stuck with it, that takes energy from you or nonstop. Or, we can go to the other extreme that it takes energy from you and it becomes essentially bloodthirsty and relentlessly pursues you. I mean, if you want that, you can more than most definitely go for it. Is it safe? Well, if something is taking your energy and your well being from you, does that sound safe? I don't think so. And if somebody else is trying to convince you that it's not that kind of not that kind of an entity, it's not that kind of a succubus. Well, is it a succubus? Yes or no? Yes? Okay, it's a succubus. It still has those behaviors. All succubi have that commonality. Mm-hmm. And more than most definitely, don't get me wrong, it's okay, and I completely can understand being inspired by something like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, or or even Diablo. I can perfectly understand being inspired by that, but you probably should just not even think that it's all. It does not. What's how it's depicted in games and stuff like that. Well, if you have it be like attached to you and it's stuck to you, well, for one thing, you really have to cleanse yourself to the like extreme, and we're talking. Uh, you probably would have to do. I would have to say more than more than that, more than just a week. Probably a complete fixated and strict like cleansing cycle for a month. Because the thing is, that thing is attached to you and it's latched onto you. You really have to really cleanse yourself hard. And yes, hard. But the most of the ways that you do a lot of intensive cleansing like that is like just doing spiritual baths. And that's probably the best way to do spiritual baths, and also drinking an herbal tea or an herbal mixture that has a lot of potent cleansing attributes to it, because you have to get it off of you. Once you have it off of you, now you have to really banish it or exile it, and even then you have to be pretty fixated and consistent in pushing it out and keeping it away, because once you push it off, it's just like a narcissist. Once you get it off of you, it wants to try and get you hooked back in again. And if you get hooked back in, you got to really push it back again. And once it's off you, you got to drive it out. You can't let it get to you. Just like how there's a technique called, when handling those and narcissist people, when you gray rock, I think that's what it's called, is when you become just so, no, ooh, yeah, whatever. Just completely boring and disinteresting. But in the case like this, it's when you don't really acknowledge it or give it the opportunity to even attach again. Just no. Because once you're attached to it that's when it starts pulling energy off you. And it takes a while. And, and sometimes you may even have to wear a piece, like a piece of selenite, or just some stone that has the strongest intention of either cleansing and purging negative energies off of you. Or even another thing you can do, you can get a piece of shungite, put it in water, and submerge yourself under the water and hold your breath, obviously, for, I would have to say, a total of 13 intervals. Like in a bath water, put a piece of shungite in there, get in the bath water, and then take a, of course, deep breath. And also have in your mind, have the intention that every time that I go underneath this water, which if the entity has a name or whatever kind of parasitical thing it is, every time that I go under the water, the entity starts being pulled off of me. And each time I go under, the pulling gets stronger. Because the shungai, what it's doing, it'll be pulling the toxicity off of you and it'll filter it out. So after you go underwater 13 times, you would have to probably keep it up for a month, probably. And I would even be really like adamant to make sure that it's like every day, at least. I would not. I wouldn't consider like there's some that actually have it like you take a bowl of water and then you put in like bath salts and stuff like that. If you put the piece of shungite in there and now if you dump it on your head, well, that's not really gonna work. You have to be like in the water with the shungite, and then just submerge yourself into it repeatedly over and over and over again, because you're still gonna be in the water, and it's your being is in the water, and the shungite just pulls toxicity and filters it out like a bottom feeder in a fish tank. That would probably be my best and most simplistic way of getting rid of it. At least, I mean, you could also technically, if you're really good at it and you want to bamboozle it off you, just completely just, okay. Oh, this succubus is taking my energy. Okay, now I'm toxic to it. Just like that. You can just, but the thing with the art of bamboozling it and the alchemical mindset and actually going about it that way, you have to be able to accept it as fact. No, that's fact now. And you can't go backwards. Because the minute you go backwards, it just completely mitigates it. You have to be to the point where, like, okay, yep, I am now toxic to this succubus thing. So whenever it takes a bite out of me, it's poisoning itself. And you don't even have to do anything fancy. You just have to have a mental shift. But that takes a lot of precision, focus, and keeping it that way. Like, when I do it, it looks very simple. But mentally, in the whole standing, it takes a lot of focus. And you have to be very firm with how it's going to be. Because since it's your being, you can decide how things affect you. But you have to be firm, precise, and you can't let anything else influence you out of it. Because the minute you give it a chance, you lost it. And now it's affecting you again. And that's like really intensive stuff. And like by intensive, I mean like, yeah, real intensive. Not like how some people term things as like, this is very powerful, when it's kind of like putting it out like as saying as like a gimmick in a way. But when you have to rely on the mental and being so fixated that no matter what happens, everything around you does not change your view and doesn't misdirect you or get you off kilter. That takes a lot of focus and a lot of being fixated on it. Because if you can't fixate, don't even try. Because it's pretty much just like, okay, I got the cure. Taking the cure and throwing it behind you. Hold on, I got it. Oh, okay. I thought I got a notification for something, but I did, but it was just something that doesn't really need the attention right now. And really, though, with the Inccubi, the Inccubi is probably going to be the most dangerous of the two, because the Inccubi can pretty much come and go. 1 minute, it could be terrorizing you and chasing you down, and then once it's gone, it can come back anytime. It's really more unpredictable. Succubi is more pulley. Inccubi can just come out of left field and then just start going at you. And it's terrifying. And it's beyond just more the ideas of having it be masculine and feminine, but it's like the mannerisms and how it behaves, which is the most terrifying. So it's not safe, and I would not suggest anybody being binded with one, or even have that close of an intimacy with it. Because to put it simply, it's like you're committing to a narcissist. Because those entities, they won't give you anything back in return. And for the and before somebody is probably thinking that, oh, so you're saying that Lilith won't give us anything in return? That's a quality. She's a divine. She's not and I'm going to call them for what they are. Lilith is not a fiend that feeds and intentionally causes suffering to everyone and everything it encounters. That's what they do. They don't give any gain, they just torment. Now, for Lilith, though, she's a divine, and there's a reasoning and a purpose behind it. She's trying to instead. It's very complicated and very complex, but from her point of view, she wants to be empowered even more than she already is. So she's actually testing people that she gets that close with to see, let's see, are you going to be really strong enough or not? Oh, I like the really optimistic ones because they're the ones that fall the hardest. Wow. Okay. That was a bit of a sudden pull from pulling the rug out from underneath me. Just put it that way. Still, like for example, like say if she goes towards a man and she's using that quality, she's also in a way kind of testing. Oh, you're really tough. Let's see then. Let's see if you can keep all your energy. Oh no, you're just all talk and just because if somebody's really empowered and really how do I put this? If somebody's in their true power, they're not. Like we care. Shh. But if somebody's really in their power, they're not going to be depleted. They're still going to maintain their energy level. But still, most of the time, people that say that they are much more, let's just say, talented, if you catch my drift, that's kind of an indication that no, somebody's not really truly confident in themselves. They're more trying to put up an illusion to shield that. And I mean, to be point blank, that's why most of the time when people behave like that, trying to get the attention off of themselves, they're actually drawing attention to it even more. Besides, Lilith doesn't need to be all like, oh yeah, I mean, look how many times that, I had it done and all the children. No, she's instead like, I know my worth and I know what I deserve. So if you think you're lucky, no, you're not lucky because now you're drained. That makes sense. Use your inside voice. Shh. Now I'm getting really feisty. Oops, did I do that? It was a joke, okay? And probably even knowing some people be like, oh! Some things are meant to be taken as comic relief and, a joke. While some things people kind of take a little bit too seriously sometimes. And speaking of that, because for gigglies, do any of you happen to remember one of the number one things that I tell you guys to never do? Like, never do. It involves speaking about something. What is something that you never want to tell anybody? And, have it be a real practical thing, not to be all like, I never want to tell somebody that, I'm pregnant. No. Like, actually, when it comes to a cult and stuff like that. Or something that can easily manipulate you. The answer, you don't tell everybody your weaknesses. You don't tell anybody what makes you upset. Because potentially, you can risk them exploiting it. Because now they know how to just make you just crumble. The only other time you can tell somebody about that is when you're getting romantically close and having an intimate connection with them. Because that's what needs to be known. But telling everybody willy-nilly that, oh, that's offensive, when it's not really something offensive in the first place, you can actually really just shoot yourself in the foot and now be exploited because of it. The same for how it is. And that's just how sometimes existence is. Mm-hmm. Oh. I have to go because I think I just heard someone fall. So I'll be back later, okay? I have to take care of this.